Coaching families the right way for me, using the solution focus approach and the behavior and relationship toolkit. So let me go to the slides now. What can you expect tonight? I'm going to give you a little bit of background about myself, some introduction of who I am, why am I standing here, what credibility do I bring to the table that gives me the right to speak about this topic. And we're going to talk, then I'm going to talk to you about the solution focus approach. And I've created 5 steps in the solution focus approach. I've kind of made it my own a little bit after having worked with over 1,000 families in the solution, using the solution focus approach, families at risk of breakdown. I just fine-tuned it for a way that it worked for me. And that's the process that I'm going to be sharing with you. And what I love about this morning, last night, I was delivering some training for someone that signed up to one of my courses. And this lady, she said that she had ADHD and that she was all over the place. And the one thing that was missing in her role, in the way she was working with people, was a structure. She needed a structure, and the solution focus approach offers you that clear structure, how you can work with families. It also, the good thing is about the 5 steps, you can use them individually. So, but we're going to talk about that later on when I'm going to explain it. It's great to see 74 people in the training room. That is amazing. Just imagine a room with 74 people in it. That is so not COVID friendly. However, online, it is amazing to see you guys. Then we're also going to talk about the behavior and relationship toolkit. And what do I mean with that? When I was working only doing pure solution focus, I started to notice that families might still come back. And I started to explore, why is that? What is behind that? And then I discovered that, you know, what we weren't doing, we weren't educating them about themselves. So I created a variety over the years of trying to figure it out. I created a variety of tools, strategies, and techniques. And I've put 5 of those in the behavior and relationship toolkit. And ever since I've started using them, it's just, I've seen a massive change within the way that the outcomes that I'm achieving with the families. And at the end, I will talk to you for a little bit about becoming an expert family coach using the solution focus approach and the behavior and relationship toolkit. There we go. Let's move on. Introduction. Who is me? Who am I? So my name is Eric Wachter. You can forget the surname. Some people say Wachter, the English way. The Dutch way is Wachter. Some Scottish people might be able to say it, but I've been called many names, but just say Eric, that will do. And a bit of a background. In 1989, I started a career as a nurse in learning disabilities, and I worked in that field for about 8-9 years. And it was an amazing journey, but I really felt the need to do something therapeutic with families. So I started to be a social worker in the Netherlands, and in 1998 I qualified to be as a social worker. And in 1999 I moved to England, and I realized what it was to be a social worker here. And I thought, I wanted to run away, because all that paperwork, that wasn't me. So I ended up working in a boarding school for children with challenging behavior and learning difficulties. And I stayed in that school for 2.5 years, but I'm not in the school. I was on the residential side. It was a boarding school. So I was actually part of the residential side. I was mainly responsible for the emotional and mental health well-being. So I was a lot involved with working with them, trying to become creative and active and just help them with their emotional situation and what was going on. After a few years there, I finally ended up in 2003 in a specialist team in West Sussex called the Family Resource Team, where on my first 2 days of being there, I got introduced to brief solution focus therapy, or solution focus brief therapy, or the solution focus approach. And initially, it took me some time to get used to it, because I thought, how can you solve problems by actually not looking at the problem? The old Eric would dive into the problem area and figure out, why is it going wrong? What can we fix there? So I thought it was maybe a bit of a scam to start with. But then I started to see colleagues really becoming as pure as possible. And I became curious, because they started to get much quicker, better results with families. So then our managers made the decision to become a pure solution-focused team. We did nothing but solution-focused, and we hired the guys from Brief in London. This is the largest training company in solution-focused in Europe. And for 6 years, as I was working in this team, I got trained every year by these guys. And our managers, they made the brilliant decision to partner us up with colleagues. To every week we had to go and partner with each other and play a most challenging parent, and so that we could practice the solution focus approach, practice responding, reacting, train our muscles to and our thinking in, how do we react when we are confronted with another new situation, because that really is the exciting stuff about our work. There is no family situation is the same. And that is why I'm passionate about this job, because I really feel with the skill set that I've got, I can make a difference in the trajectory. Okay, that's not a word for me to pronounce easily, but in the trajectory of where the family's future, where they're heading, where they're going. So in 2009, at the end, I made the decision to leave this team because my 18-year-old, who's now 18, but at that time he was 8 years old. When he was 2.5, he was diagnosed with autism. That is another passion of mine. So if you have any questions about that, join me in the Zoom. But we found a particular program. We noticed that the education system wasn't working for him. And so we found a program that we're going to do here at home, and we needed to be full on that one. So I had to leave the team, and I ended up in the next phase of my life, as well as working with him. I actually ended up the start of my company, which was at that time called Solution Focused. And for 10 years, it was called Solution Focused. I traveled around the UK and trained over 4,000 social workers and family support practitioners in the Solution Focused approach. I really learned a lot. And one of the most interesting things, and I'm curious where you stand on this, one of the most interesting things is that out of the 4,000 or plus people that I have met at trainings, I always ask at the beginning of the training, I ask the question, tell me, what is the approach that you use when you work with families? And I was really surprised to see and to hear that at least 85% told me that, to be really honest with you, Eric, I feel that most of the time I'm just winging it. And that took me a little bit by surprise, because when you're just winging it, it can feel quite overwhelming. If you go into a place and you don't exactly know what to do. And that's why every time when I train these people, they went away really exciting, because at the end of the training, they had a structure that they could follow, and they moved from just winging it to become confident and have clarity about how to do this process, this coaching process, to coach a family from where they are now to where you would like them to be, or where they would like to be, or where you would like them to be. So that depends a little bit. So that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. There's been a short period of time in between that I was working in a child protection team as a social worker, which was really interesting to see how the solution focused approach fits in there. Because before that, I only did therapeutic work as a social worker with families. So let's move on. The perfect combination, the solution focus approach and the behavior and relationship toolkit. Why do I call it the perfect combination? It's the perfect combination for me. And like I already said, the solution focus approach is highly effective. But what I was missing was, how can I help the parents, educate them about what is driving their decision making? How could I educate them about how they could have more influence in encouraging and motivating their children? How could I help them to see that the children are not just there ruining their life, but that there's logic to it all, that I could explain why the children were behaving in a certain way, why there was challenging behavior, and how they as parents could actually take ownership. That was another one, ownership, and turn it around. And that perfect combination really made a difference in so many families that I've worked with. And I hope that tonight you're going to have the opportunity to get a few light bulb moments. What my promise is to you, that I will do my best for you to walk away with some light bulb moments that you might take into your work. From all the people that I've met so far, that is their reaction, that they had light bulb moments. So let's move on. before I take you through the 5 steps, I want to share a few solution-focused principles with you. So the first one that we see, that is here, is we see the parent as the expert of their own situation. And what do I mean with that? Do I mean is that we agree with them, with what they do? It is totally not that. What I mean with this is that we're being respectful, and also they do know themselves best and their children best. And we used to have a leaflet whereby in the leaflet we said, we're not coming into your house to tell you what to do. We will ask questions, but we see you as the expert of your family. And I thought it was a real respectful way, because some of the feedback that parents gave me over the years was that their experiences with services coming into their lives often has been that of the experience of a bulldozer coming into their life. And I'm not saying that you are a bulldozer, but from a parent point of view, it sometimes has been like that. And therefore, if we can see them and inform that they are the experts of their family situation, and we won't be coming into their lives to take over, that is a perfect way to start. So let's look at the second principle. I mean, there are loads of principles, but I just wanted to share a few with you. So I like this one. If something works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, chuck it in the bin and leave it there. Don't get it out of the bin again. And think of a new strategy. The amount of times that I've seen parents week out, week after week after week, actually trying to deal with a particular situation in the same way, but every time expecting a different outcome. And there's a particular word for that. There is a word for that when people do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And I know that some of you already know this, but it's insanity. But the interesting thing is that this is also for you as a worker. When you as a worker go in and you try something, if it the first time doesn't work, then that is not failure. When something doesn't work or failure, it's actually not a bad thing. It's a learning opportunity to learn what not to do anymore. And that is another thing that I want to pass on to parents. I want the parents to, when they start working with their children or in partnership working with you, failure is only failure if we give up, if we stop. Otherwise, failure is just a learning opportunity on what not to do anymore. And some of you might know of the boxer Muhammad Ali. And when you look him up on YouTube, he's a famous boxer when he was alive. And he always tried to have his opponent in the middle of the ring. And he would dance around them. And he was always trying to find his way in. And if this strategy didn't work, he would try another one. He would try another one. And I feel that you and me, we are like him. When we work with a family, we are always trying to find a way in. Well, I am always trying to find a way in. And if this one doesn't work, then maybe that one will work. And that one, if that one doesn't work, that one will work. It's like when a baby tries to walk for the first time, what happens? The baby crashes, he falls. And what does the baby do? Well, he cries a bit and then he tries again. And then he falls and he cries a bit. And it's not that the baby at some point will say, man, what is that? I've been falling down for 10 times. I'm going to give up. I'm not doing this walking stuff anymore. No, the baby keeps going. He keeps going. And until he succeeds. And that is the mentality that I feel I have as a worker, that, when I fall, I will learn what not to do anymore, and I will get better at this. And the same for the parents. We can share that mindset when they are going to work with us, working with the children, is we're going to keep going until we find that strategy that works. In the solution focus approach, we work with small achievable steps. Small achievable steps. And I'm going to go deeper into that one, but really, I have a few words before that. Seriously, ridiculously small achievable steps. And it is so vital that we make it as small as possible, because the first time around, we want them to taste success. If they taste success when they work with you, then they anchor a good feeling towards that process. But I'm going to go deeper into that when I take you through the 5 steps. I'm just quickly having a little look at If anyone is putting something in here, I've worked 14.5 years in residential care with children with learning and physical disability and love doing the solution-focused practice. Brilliant, Ann Jones. Yeah, I mean, you probably, you know, I can't stop talking about the solution-focused approach because it changed my life. It changed how I work with families. So I'm just really excited to be sharing this with you tonight. I am going to go back to the slides. The next one, I can promise you, is my favorite. It changed me the most. And every time, out of all the 4,000 plus people that I've trained, everyone recognized themselves in this. They either had managed to become better at it, but they definitely were still doing it. So here we are. Let's move on to the next one. What we need to learn to do is we need to learn to move away from offering your own suggestions and your own ideas to the family. Instead, you need to become an expert in knowing what questions to ask to get them to the place that they take ownership and that they come up with the solution, or at least, you know, that they feel that they came up with the solution. Because what happens when someone feels that they come up with the solution? What happens? They take ownership and they will follow through. If they are being told what to do, lots of people, little children, when you tell a little child what to do, there's a high chance that they will rebel. And adults, we're kind of the same a little bit, just a bit older. You know, there's still a chance that we will rebel. But you know, you might think, but Eric, I have such good ideas. And I agree with you. Your ideas are gold dust. And if you really think that you got a good idea for this family, what is it that you need to do? According to this principle, you need to think, what question can I ask this family to get them to think about what I'm actually thinking about? So you're kind of going to go trying to get it into their brain, because it is so important that they feel they came up with the solution, or with that solution, or with the way forward, because then they own it, and ownership is so powerful. I'll talk about it in a little bit when I give you an example of a situation. Good. Hey, let me just quickly just get a little sip of water. I am excited. This is fun. You know, when I work with a family, and the solution focus approach fits within a 45 to 60 minute session. However, like I said, you can use all of these 5 steps also individually. But I'm talking tonight more about the 5 steps. But you know, at some point I started to explore and ask myself, how will I know I have done a good session with a family? And that is where I discovered or created the 3 C's. The 3 C's. At the end of each session, I will go in my brain and go in my thinking, and I ask myself, can I tick off each of those 3 C's to know that I have done a good session? And I've had feedback from the people who've done this training. Lots of people said at the end of the training, they said that even the 3 C's is really going to change the way they work. It's going to make their work so much more effective. So which are the 3 C's that I need to tick off to know that I've done a good session? And you'd be surprised how many C's there are. People go communication, confidence, but it's none of those. Here we are, the first C. First C, connection. And I will go deeper into that, because it is vital at the end of the session. I need to check in that I create a connection with them, that we are clicking, we are gelling. Because it is, if I haven't got that, I can start all over again next week. So it is vital that I need to tick off, can I have connection? And connection, all these 3 C's fit exactly within the solution focus 5 steps. They all come back to the 5 steps come back to the 3 C's, which I'm going to explain to you in a moment. But once I've got connection with them, you know, I need to go and help them with the next C, because I need to help them to gain clarity. And I love the word clarity. Clarity is so vital, you know, it's so important, because without clarity, you have nowhere to go. Without clarity of what they want to achieve from working with you, there is no place to travel to. And therefore, if they don't have clarity about what it is that they want from you, then you're going to be stuck. And next week you have to try again. So at the end of the session, I need to ensure, I really need to check, have I helped this family to gain clarity about what it is that they want to achieve from working with me? And you know about clarity? I bet, I'm curious. Some of you must have the experience of feeling overwhelmed sometimes with a family, really overwhelmed. And you know where that feeling of overwhelmed, comes from? Is that you as the worker, sometimes you don't have clarity about what specific piece of work to do with this family. And when you as a worker don't have clarity, you just end up visiting them for the sake of visiting them. So sometimes I remember the times when we got referral forms, and often from health visitors we got referral forms, and the health visitor would put on the referral form what they thought the family needed, not what the family needed. And that's where we learned and discovered so that we had to really go back to the family and ask them the question to get clarity what it is that they want. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. The last C, so when you do the process, you got connection, you help them to gain clarity, and at the end, they've got a specific thing that they're going to do in the coming week. And what I've learned, what I need to do, is I need to ensure that I help them to create the highest level of commitment. And there is a whole bunch of techniques that you, within the solution focus approach, that gets them to that highest level. And this is a step that I actually created myself, because I noticed that families, even though they said that they would do it, they still end up not doing it. So I wanted to build something in there that if I can get them to the highest level of commitment to follow through with this process, our chances will increase for them to be successful and achieve positive change within their situation. So that's the 3 C's. At the end of the session, and I would love you, I used to have a laminated card when I was still working with families in my pocket, where I had connection, clarity, and commitment written on it just for me to check my brain. Did I manage to help to develop that connection? Did I help to gain clarity for the family? And did I get them to the highest level of commitment? If I could tick those 3, I knew I've done a good session. So I hope that when you go away and you work with families, use those 3 C's and ask yourself, can I tick them? Because it's going to make a massive difference. So let's start looking at the 5 solution focus steps. So again, I'm repeating myself a little bit. 45 to 60 minutes, you can fit those within that session. However, sometimes you might discover, because every family situation is different, that you might end up doing a whole session on one of the steps. But if you really want to do sort of therapeutic work, do a coaching session to take someone from where they are now to where they would like to be, that is where, these steps really come in, and they fit within that time period. So I want you to think for a moment, when you meet a family for the very first time, can you think about what kind of state are they in? The family that you're going to see for the first time. And if I think about it, they're often anxious, worried, frustrated, concerned, anxious. So if they are in that state, that is not a state to actually start moving on. To start a journey with you, because a state of stress is not a state of learning. And I learned that at the time when my son was in school, and the sensory overload and everything that was going on created a lot of stress in his body. And when we took the stress out of his body, the learning opened up. And that's the same for the parents. So this is where problem-free talking comes in, and we need to spend time with them to connect to a deep level. That's where the first C comes in, connection. We use problem-free talking. We talk about anything but the problem. And let me tell you a story about one of the grandparents that I work with. I love this story because it sticks with me, because it was one of the first cases that I worked in a solution-focused way. And all the services, this is a 65-year-old grandmother, was looking after her 15-year-old grandson. His parents kicked him out and was living with his grandmother. But grandmother had all the services in already, and she was fed up with it. Nothing worked. And as I was sitting there, she was going like this. She was rocking in her chair. And I was sitting there thinking, solution focused. So problem-free talking. I was saying to myself, how can I connect to her? Because she is rocking, she is not with me. And I looked around the house. And as I looked around the house, I saw porcelain dolls everywhere. And that was really funny because I must have watched Little Britain the night before. And I said with a weird voice, I said, porcelain dolls, what's that all about? But you know what happened? When I said porcelain dolls, when I said that, I saw a twinkle in her eye. And when I saw that twinkle in her eye, I knew that I had touched on something that mattered to her. And I got on the edge of my chair, and for 10 minutes, I became a super detective. I just questioned her about porcelain dolls. And I learned that she travels Europe, exhibitions, she sells them, she buys them, she swaps them. She has local meetup groups with people who have porcelain dolls. She brushes their hair, puts makeup on, takes pictures, puts them on the Facebook group. I mean, there was a whole world for porcelain doll lovers. And you know, after 10 minutes, I was an expert in porcelain dolls, but that was not the important stuff. For those 10 minutes, she totally and utterly forgot why I was there. We were gone in connection to such a deep level that I could see that she trusted me. And I started building my session on that. And when I knew, that's where I learned, when you get that one right, it's powerful. But when you get it wrong, when you don't get that connection, you can start again next week. So therefore, the first C, connection, problem-free talking, really powerful. Let's look at the second step, because after the first C, connection, what was the second C again? Do you remember? The second C was clarity. And with clarity, that's where the best hope steps come in. In the best hope steps, we are helping the family. There's a whole bunch of questions. We help the family we ask them, what is it that you would like to achieve from working with me? And they will give you an answer. And for example, sometimes the answer, well, most of the time you will find and you will discover, and particularly after this training, I think you're gonna notice it. When you ask someone what they want to achieve from working with you, they will tell you what they no longer want. I want my children to stop fighting. Okay, so in the best hope steps, we turn every negative goal around with the word instead. We ask them, so if they are not fighting, what are they doing instead? And so they'll be getting on. So then we need to explore, create a detailed picture of what things look like. We also have questions to increase their motivation. It's really powerful questions. And we have also got a question whereby we explore the past. And it's not the past that we need to dig, where did things go wrong? We actually explore the past, whereby we try to figure out when things were working, even if it was just for 5 or 10 minutes. When was there ever a moment that things were working? And if so, what was helpful? We dive deep there. So that is the best hope steps. After connection through problem-free talking, we help them to gain clarity what it specifically is that they want to achieve from working with us, and help them to create a really detailed picture around that. Once we've created that really detailed picture, we go to step 3, and that is the scale. Step 3, in the scale, you have a scale from 0 to 10, where we can put that preferred future picture, the best hopes picture, we can put it on number 10, having achieved it, that picture. And 0 on the scale is the worst case scenario. And then we take them on a journey on the scale, because this is the place where you can measure things. We ask them where they currently feel with 10 having achieved it and 0 the worst case. Where do you think you currently are? Let's say that they give themselves a 4. There is another opportunity whereby we're going to explore why they are at a 4 and not at a 1, because we are learning there again what has been working well so far. Once we have discovered that, so we know that they're at a 4 and we know what has been working in the past, we ask the vital important question. No one is a perfect 10. So where would you like to be when things will be manageable for you and you no longer need me? And let's say they place themselves at an 8. So they start at a 4 and going to an 8. That's quite a 4 steps. It's doable. Feels much better than 0 and 10. So that's what we do in the scale. We identify where they want to be on the scale and what that would look like, and also is where they no longer need you. So you as a worker get in the first session already an idea where they need to be before you no longer need it. So that's when we have done the scale. And then we come to what I find the most challenging step. This step is called the small achievable step. Seriously, I feel like a Marks and Spencer. This is not just a small achievable step. This is a seriously ridiculous small achievable step. it's very special because we want the families to taste success. It is your job to ensure that whatever, with the small achievable step, we don't give it to them. We ask them to think, is there something that you, and this is the key thing, you, let's say if you work with the parent, something that you can do, not what you think your children need to do, but what you can do. Is there something that you can do that would help you to move up on the scale? And, if they are stuck, there are a whole bunch of techniques that we can ask them particular solution-focused questions to get them to the place where they still come up with a small achievable step that were their words. Again, it needs to be their small achievable step, because when it's theirs, it's ownership. And let's say that they have figured out this small achievable step. Then we go to the last one, because in the past, I started to notice when people have a small achievable step, what is actually happening? What happens is that they still might not do it. There are many times that I came a week later and said, oh, sorry, mate, sorry. Yeah. So I created step 5, the commitment scale. Again, a scale from 0 to 10. 0 to 10, with 10 being woohoo! I am 100% committed to follow through with this small achievable step, and 0, I seriously cannot be bothered. And I ask them to place themselves where they are. And if they place themselves, let's say 5 or lower, then you know that they're not committed, and we have to go back to the drawing board. But I will do anything. And with this commitment scale, there are lots of questions that I will, in the nicest way, nail them down there to become as committed as possible with following through, so that at the end, I am almost definite that they will be successful. So all these steps you can also use individually. Problem-free talking, I would do anyway, with people. Connect is so important. Make that connection. And the scale, you can create so many different scales. You can create the best day at school scale, with 10 being the best day and 0 the most crappy day. You can create the relationship, let's say the relationship with your mom scale. 10 being the best and 0 the worst. There's so many, the happy scale. You can do so many skills. Small achievable steps in whatever you do, even if you don't do the whole coaching process. If someone is going to do something, make sure that it is small and achievable so that it tastes success. And, with whatever they do, get them to commit to a certain level and explore that to get them to a higher level of commitment. So those are the 5 solution-focused steps. Connection, clarity, and commitment. The 3 C's, they all fit within that process. Are you all still doing okay? Is everyone still awake? Okay. Connection before correction. I like that one. Letitia, connection before correction. Amen. That is powerful. I'm going to give you credit, Letitia, and then I'm going to use it. I'm going to give you credit twice because I like that one. So let's go back to the slides. Let me just check one tiny thing. Good. Amy, you're loving it. Sounds like a McDonald's advert. Loving it. Good, good. There we go. Back to the slides for me. Let's move on to the next part. And the next part, we are going to talk about the behavior and relationship toolkit. So this toolkit is, if you have a family, a partner, or kids, it's going to be great fun just to use yourself. If it works in your life, it will definitely work in the lives of the people that you work with. But with some of these tools, I have really seen situations change within one session, because often in family, when I start working with them, particularly when there are behavior problems with the children, they often tell me at the very beginning, Eric, I really feel that my child is trying to ruin my life. And when a parent is in that state, in that place, it's going to be a real interesting job trying to shift that. But the tools in here, when someone gets insight and an increased awareness of themselves, what drives their behavior, what drives their decision-making process, what drives them to increase their influence on their children, family dynamics, how we love each other. It's going to be really powerful, this process. So let's get started with I'm just going to name you them first. So the first one is the 6 human needs. That is the tool that I use the most because it clearly explains to the parents why their child is not doing the stuff that they are doing to ruin their life, but why they're behaving, they're presenting challenging behavior, and what the parents can actually do to turn that around. So that is the 6 human needs. Then we go to full ownership, which is a technique. You know, how many of the families that you work with like to point their finger at someone else? The education system, the other professionals, or the children. It's always someone else that is to blame. And this one really takes parents to take full ownership of the process. We're going to go a bit deeper on that in a moment. The 5 love languages. Some of you might have heard of that one. I did not invent it, but I did put it in the toolbox because it's so powerful. And if you want to learn more about the 5 love languages, then go to 5lovelanguages.com and Google it. This guy has written, this is a guy who's been a marriage counselor for over 25 years, and he learned that there are different ways that we love people or that we receive love. And in the end, after working for 25 years, over 25 years with couples, he discovered there were 5 of those love languages. But we're going to talk about them, we'll go deeper there in a moment. Got some interesting stories to tell there as well. Then the rules that we live by. Let me just give you an example on that one now, so I'm not going to go deeper into that later. But and I'm curious how many of you will recognize this. You know, if my wife and I have got, how do you call that, a day off together, and I am so looking forward for us to go to our favorite coffee house and go and sit there and go out and walk around town at the time that we could still do this, then, but the house is a mess. You know, my rule that I have for a situation like that is I would say, well, why don't we go first out and really enjoy the day? And when we come home tonight together, you and me, for an hour, we're going to just tidy up the house. But my wife's rule about this one is, I mean, I can't go out and walk into town knowing in the back of my mind that it's such a mess at home and that I have to come home to this mess and then have to work. I need to tidy it up first because then I can enjoy the day. You know, what my worry is, like, if we're going to start tidying, then we might just tidy for hours and then we're too tired to actually go out. But, you know, as a guy, I've learned that a happy wife is a happy life. So we go by her rule. But I'm curious how many of you recognize that people within the household have different rules. The other day, I had a meeting with a group of parents. And one of the parents said, I got so angry with my 7-year-old this morning. So angry because he lied to me. You know, and this mother clearly had a very strict rule about lying. And it just really got her upset. And she just had to question, was her getting upset and so angry and having a go and yelling at her kid, was it helpful? Was it the right choice? And that's what I mean with an increased awareness of self. Once you start to understand yourself and you start to see what works and what doesn't work, you can, you know, do more of that stuff. But so the rules we live by is something that I discuss with parents. If I see something like that happening within the family, I've seen so many times that the parent is really upset with the child because the child seems to be breaking the rule that the parent has created in their lives. You know, so relationship first, I will talk about that in a moment, but it's a powerful tool to increase your influence and to continuous influence over your child or on your child. All right, let me see. Yay, Margaret, the 5 love languages is such a powerful tool to use in both professional and personal circumstances. I so believe that. And I would highly recommend to buy any of these books. You know, they have written a book about children, families, teenagers. It's really powerful, the 5 love languages. And Jane is really good. I like that. I realized I do solution work already. Brilliant. I mean, that is also good to realize that you are doing it. Let's go back to the slides. Good. Let's go deeper on a few of them. So, first of all, the 6 human needs, they're kind of difficult to explain in such a short time. But like I said, parents sometimes see that the children present challenging behavior with the aim to ruin their lives. I personally don't believe that children have challenging behavior because of that they want to ruin someone's life. You know, for you and me, for all of us to be happy in life and to be fulfilled in life, for everyone on this planet, there are 6 human needs that we need to meet at the highest level possible. And it's not that we make decisions like, oh, I want to meet that. No, you, me, and everyone on the planet, we have an internal drive that drives us to meet those needs, to be happy at the highest level possible. And I see that, I believe that we see someone present challenging behavior because of their inability to meet those needs. Because, you know, the situation with those human needs, to meet them at the highest level possible, those 6 human needs, which I'm going to discuss in a moment, to meet them at the highest level possible, there are 2 ways that they can get there. One is the positive way, which often takes a lot more work or more effort. And then you have the instant gratification way, I want it now, the negative way, which often can lead to challenging behavior. So let's look and explore what are those 6 human needs. The 6 human needs, and I mean, this is great stuff to do in your own family as well. There's a whole bunch of activities you can do with this, but you have certainty, and I'm going to go deeper in some of these in a moment. Uncertainty is one that I'm going to tell you a little story about. But, you know, if I ask you, what is it that you need certainty of in your life? If your health, if something would happen to your health, seriously happen to your health, and would that affect how you might behave? If at the end of the month, there's no more income coming in, but the bills are still there, and your certainty about your financial situation goes away, do you think it might affect how you behave? If you are in a relationship and you're starting to notice that your partner might be connecting with someone on Facebook from the past, do you think that your certainty, when it disappears, of that your relationship is okay, that it might affect the way you behave? And so that is interesting to think about that, because when your need is not met, you're going to do everything in your power trying to meet that need again. So the second one, and I'm going to go deeper into certainty in a moment, but the second one is challenge and variation. When you think of young people, for example, when they, particularly now in COVID, when their need of challenge and variation is not met, they get bored, and they might end up doing stuff in the instant gratification that is leading to challenging behavior. You know, they might go out steal, they might go out and drink, they might break the COVID rules, you know, they might end up in fights, all that sort of stuff. And that's why, you know, we see youth organizations take them, those young people, to mountains and throw them off the mountains, of course with little ropes attached, because that is where their challenge and variation will be met at a higher level. The last time I actually worked in child protection, one of my last families, I placed a child for 3 months in a very, well, it was £7,000 a week activity center, because every day this kid went out canoeing, abseiling, horse riding, mountain biking. They were just meeting all of these needs in all these activities with them. Because he had so much challenging behavior, because none of these needs were met in his life. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but you might see it. And so significance, I'm going to tell you more stories about, but you know, we all want to matter, we all want to be important, and we all do different things to meet that need. Love and connection. If you think about love and connection, you know, when you want a little bit more love and connection with your partner, you could go out to the shop and buy some flowers, make a nice candlelight dinner and stuff like that. But there is also another way, you know, you could start an argument, which some people do, not consciously, but subconsciously. You know, they long for some attention, they long for some connection, and hopefully some love. And they might end up having an argument, trying to meet the need of love and connection. So then you have the last 2 are for fulfillment in life, which I'm not going to talk about, but growth and contribution are not just for happiness, but this is for to become fulfilled. As a child, I hated learning. As an adult now, I love learning. I'm a sponge. So I love to grow, and I love to contribute in this world. I love to leave a legacy that what I'm doing makes an impact. So that's the last 2. So let's now look a little bit more closer at the first 4 needs: certainty, challenge, variation, significance, love, and connection. These are the 4 needs that I always how do you call that? That I'm explain to the parents, because this really is, this will explain why their children are presenting this challenging behavior, or why they themselves as parents are presenting the challenging behavior, or why their partner is behaving in a certain way. This will give a lot of clarity. Okay, so I am going to give you an example of certainty, and I'm actually going to combine it with something else that I discussed at the beginning when I went through the solution focused principles. But certainty, I once did a training, and this social worker stood up and she said, Eric, it was in a coffee break, I think. She came to me and she said, Eric, I have a 15-year-old son. I can't remember what the name was, but let's call him Danny. And Danny is 15 years old and he wants to go out with his mates. And he wants to come home at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I am deeply concerned and deeply worried that something might happen to him. You know, in the last few weeks, we've been having these fights because I've been asking him that he needs to do this and needs to do that, just to, you know, that, so that I feel, you know, I have some certainty that he's okay. But, you know, why would she do this? Really think for a moment. What is the reason behind her, why she's doing that? She's doing that because she actually loves him. She cares about him. But now look at it from Danny's point of view. When he looks at his mom, how do you think he perceives it? Neck, 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 neck. So you got the same situation, but totally different viewpoints from the different people. And she asked me, Eric, how do I go about this? And, you know, this is where the combination comes in, because one of the solution-focused principles that I explained to her, and I'm going to tell you what she did, and then we can come on that principle. So I had a coaching session with her, and she walked away, and this is what she did. She went to her son, Danny, and she said, Danny, you know, I want you to go out with your mates. And I was once your age, and I want you to go out and have fun. But Danny, you know, I love you so much, and I want you to be safe. Danny, is there anything that you think that you can do that would help me to know that you're safe? And you could see Danny's face go a little bit like, that's different. So 20 minutes later, Danny came back, and he simply said, all right, Mom, you know, when I will leave, I'll give you a ring or a text, whatever you prefer. And the journey is about 20 minutes. So 10 minutes in, I'll give you another ring. So you simply know that things are okay. And then we see each other 10 minutes later. And she said she was gobsmacked. And this is where the solution-focused principle, moving away from telling the other person your ideas and suggestions. Give them ownership. This young man was given ownership. But also what happened by him doing that, what happened to her certainty level? Her certainty level increased, and so the need to become controlling and to tell him what to do disappeared. And that's why it is so important to get that need of at the highest level possible. Because when the need is met at the highest level possible, you'll be the happiest, and your negative behavior will fade out, will fade away. Just going to have a quick look at anything there. Brilliant. Good. So now let's look at significance. I've got two really interesting stories here. Significance. Everyone wants to matter and want to be significant. And you know, if you look at those 4 human needs, let me just go back one more briefly. If you look at the 4 human needs, certainty, challenge, variation, significance, love, and connection, there is evidence that if you that for women, and it might not be you, but when they ask so many women, this as a group of people, for women, the main drivers, the main 2 important human needs that are the most important ones is certainty and love and connection. For men, it is significance and love and connection. So it's just an interesting fact to know. So now let's look at that, what do you call that, that example of significance. Picture little George. Little George is 5 years old, and little George goes to the playground. He's on the playground, and he inside of himself, little George feels that he is not important. He's not significant. So what can little George do to instantly become significant? You get it. Little George, he ran to little Jeffrey and he kicked him really hard. And then instantly, little George became significant towards the other children and the teachers. And it is not that little George woke up that morning and said, I don't feel significant today. I'm going to kick little Jeffrey and I'm going to be significant. No, it's all subconscious. He didn't feel important, and he went for instant gratification, even without realizing it. But you know, what I hope that schools don't do is that they don't see it as naughty behavior. Yes, it is not nice behavior, but don't treat him like you're a naughty. That's naughty. I do hope that they have a conversation with him that you can't do that and ask, say sorry to little Jeffrey. But what I hope is that they understand that actually why he was behaving like that is because he didn't feel significant. And they would possibly guess, if they knew about his human needs, that was it. And then I hope what the school needs to do is to find ways to top up this feeling of significance, this need of significance, by making him a playground buddy, a prefect, a deliverer of important news to classrooms, anything like that. And then you will see the negative behavior. When the child feels significant, you see the negative behavior disappear. Let me tell you one more story about significance, and you might recognize this. This is about Ben, and Ben was 15 years old. Ben was the highest student in the secondary school, the best student at the top of everything. He was the best. But outside of school, Ben was actually, he was really not doing well. He was stealing, he was fighting, he was doing drugs, and he was often involved with the police. And you know, you need to know, when I first met Ben's mom, the first thing that she said to me, as a lot of parents do when I meet them, is, I hate my child's behavior. He is ruining my life. That's what he's doing. And you need to know that mom actually was a police officer. So really interesting. Mom was a police officer. Ben, she really felt it. He's just, with my colleagues, he's making a mess out there. So after I did the connection, of course, at some point I explained the 4 needs to them. And I explained to them that I don't believe that Ben is doing that because he wants to ruin your life. I believe that he's trying to meet, you know, either certainty or challenge variation or significance or love and connection. And I asked them to, you know, to explore which need, if you look at Ben's behavior, which need do you think, and mom, in the meantime, was married with stepdad. And they had 2 half siblings, 2 years and 4 years old, when I went to work with them. But I asked them to, which need do you think? And initially they thought challenge and variation with everything that he's doing out there. But when they started thinking about the wider family, you know, when it was just mom and Ben, when it was just them together, things were really going well. They were watching DVDs every night, and their relationship was on fire. On fire it was. But then stepdad came along, it was still okay. Stepdad took him out to cricket at the weekend, things were going well. Then half sibling number 1 came along 2 years later, half sibling number 2, and when I was there, they were 2 and 4 years old. And what happens when you have a 2 and a 4-year-old? You're busy. Ben no longer felt a significant member of this family. So, short story, what do you do? What do you do? You ask them to challenge, you ask them to look at the challenging behavior and identify which need is my child trying to meet. Once they've identified that, they ask them to think about what could they as a family do to top up that need without expecting anything back. That is the goal dust, without expecting anything back. And you need to do that for a certain period of time, 30 days at the minimum. So that's a real challenge, but they were eager to make it work. And that's what they did. And she said 3 weeks later, she phoned me. She said, Eric, it is unbelievable. She said, I can already see. And they came up with so many things to make him significant. He started to really become a significant member of the family. 6 months later, the trajectory of this family has totally changed. They got it. They understood. Things were not always like rosy and brilliant, but they knew, they understood why the children were behaving they were, and they knew what to do. So let's look at, so full ownership is just a tool to get people to move from blaming people to take ownership. And also there's a tool within this whereby they can take ownership over the process to move from their current situation to their new situation. But I'm seeing that we're already on the 1 hour, so I'm not going to go too deep into that one. I'm just looking at the chat at this moment. Definitely. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading that. I find it interesting. Such a shame that I would love to meet with you guys in a room and have a good discussion about that. All right, so that is full ownership. The 5 love languages. You know, you and me, all of us, your families that you work with, we all have our own love language. And let's just look at the 5 love languages. So The first one is affirmation. You know, the other day I actually painted the lounge. I painted our lounge and the walls, and my wife was blown away by it. She said, man, Eric, for 3-4 days, she just said, it looks so different. It makes my day so different. Thank you so much. You know, and by her affirming that I did that, thank you, it made me feel loved. But you know, if I would do the same to her, if I would say, when she cooks a meal and I say, oh, Sally, thank you so much for doing this, she would look at me and would go like, what? But if I do the second love language, if I put her on the settee and I give her 20 minutes of my undivided attention, really listen to her, look at her, I know for sure that that will make her feel loved. Then you have gift giving. There are people, and I'll tell you a story about that in a moment, whereby gift giving is the way that they feel loved, or the way they give love. Acts of service makes me think of my mom. My mom, she was a master at acts of service. She loves cooking for the family, creating very special moments with coffee and tea. And she was just always loving us with the nicest meals and creating the environment that we just felt loved. And I think about it all the time. And physical touch. I have a friend who is a squeezer. I mean, he's been suffering the last year because this whole not touching each other, but he would always come up and he would squeeze you. And that's how he's a physical touch love language person. What I want you to do now, for one moment, if you want to, I'm going to look in the chat. Now, if you look at the 5 love languages, very briefly, the way that you receive love, I want you to think about the way that you receive love. What is the love language for you that makes you feel loved? So that if you're, let's say, in a relationship of your children or anything like that, when they do that, what is, can you put it in the chat box? Just write down the if it's affirmation or quality time. I'm just really curious what it is for you. Deborah says affirmation. Let's see if anything else pops in. I know that sometimes there's a bit of a delay in this. Rebecca, quality time. There it all starts popping in now. Quality time for Tracy. Emma says affirmation. And Dorianne says affirmations. Oh, she wants affirmations. Ah, okay. Fantastic. It's all coming in now. Julia says acts of service. Sally says physical touch. It's really important just to think about this. Just to think about this, because, you know, what is really interesting about the 5 love languages, and let me tell you that story now. I was once delivering a training, and the social worker stood up, and she was angry a bit with me, or angry with her situation. She said, Eric, it is nice what you're all sharing here, but I have an 11-year-old daughter at home who just tells me every day that I don't love her. And I don't understand it. I give her everything that she needs. Can you see what's going on here? I don't understand. I give her everything that she needs. Was this woman, this mother, not loving her daughter? Yes, she was loving her daughter, really, by giving her everything that she needs. But what she didn't know what was her daughter's love language. She was loving her daughter by her own love language, not on purpose. She just didn't understand. So once I explained the 5 love languages to her, she went back home, and over a period of time, she explored what her daughter's love language was, and she discovered it was quality time, and she started to spend quality time with her. And I spoke to her over the next 6 months a few times, and things, again, the trajectory of that family relationship totally changed. And this is why the work that we do is so exciting, because if you can change even one family, one set of parents, for example, or a parent, a single parent, if you can change the way they help their children or deal with their children, that is going to have a knock-on effect on the children's development and the children's development. So that's why I am so super excited. Margaret, there's always one person that says all 5 at different times. True. Totally true, and it depends on certain things and situations. But there is, throughout everything, I have learned that there is always one main driver. I think we all need all 5, and it needs to flow in and out of situations, but there's always one main driver. And just to give you another story about, I was once working with a family explaining the 6 human needs and the 5 love languages. I was actually doing some work about the children, and the mother started to cry. She started to cry, and I asked, what's wrong? What's happening here? And she said, Eric, as you were explaining this, you know, I'm one of 5, and my 4 siblings all felt loved by my mother. And I, as a child, and even now as an adult, I've never felt loved by her. And I never understood it. I always felt that she didn't love me. But now I hear these 5 love languages, and now I know that she has always loved me. And I think it was acts of service and gift giving, acts of service and gift giving. But her love language was quality time. So it didn't work. So when you have 3 children, you need to know what their children's love languages are, so that you can love them all in their own love language. The same family that I was just speaking about, the father suddenly said, now I understand why my 2 children, when they come home from school, one jumps all over me and gives hugs and cuddles, and the other one presents the 13 drawings that they made for me. You know, it's their love language. And he got excited because he suddenly started looking at the children differently. So Sinead, affirmation, physical touch and quality time. Mercy, gift giving. You know, and I would love you to go and just look in your own life about this and explore what is the situation with the love language. All right, I'm going to go back to thank you so much, every one of you. If I haven't mentioned you, I'm sorry, but suddenly they popped all in like a water from a tap. It just came all running out. I'll be all looking at them at the end and have a good look at them. So here we are. Let's go. So I told you the story about the child, and so relationship first. You know, sometimes as a parent, you can get frustrated because your child is not listening to you. And some parents, to gain leverage over that situation, they cut themselves off. They will, for example, say, I don't want to talk to you. They might blank the child completely. And relationship first is a concept that, you know, if we lose that relationship, if we cut that connection, we actually lose the opportunity to influence our child. When you continuously use it as a leverage, trying to get your will or your way over them, then at some point there is no relationship. And when you lose that, you lose the ability to influence them. Therefore, at all time, whatever you're going to do, however you're going to react to your children, ask yourself, if I react this way, will I still have a relationship with them? And that's the sort of, in short term, the relationship first concept. So yeah, by putting relationship first, you increase your level of influence. So here we are. We've come to the end of that little bit of training, and bear with me for another 2 minutes. If you like this, what I'm sharing with you, then you have an opportunity to train with me if you want to. You might need to talk to your manager about this, but I've got some really interesting to share with you in a moment. Coaching Families the Right Way. It's an online course. And if I go, but what is it that, how will this empower you? And I really want to ask you for 2 more minutes to bear with me. When you really go deep and learn the solution focused approach, other than that, it will give you a structure. It will empower you to increase a family's willingness to engage with you, which I think a lot of us will have difficulties with. It will help you to increase their motivation to achieve positive outcome. And that's another area, you know, how do we get them motivated? It will empower you to coach them to a much higher level of ownership of their journey. And it will increase your influence on families who present a higher level of resistance, gain a deeper understanding of why people present challenging behavior, and also how to empower and equip parents to give them tools that they can themselves turn around challenging behavior, often without arguments or conflict, hopefully. And it helps you to help parents to gain clarity and see that there's a logic to it all, and give parents specific tools and techniques that will equip them to move from where they are now to where they would like to be. Then the most important one, well, not the most important one, but so many people have told me that they feel that they're just winging it. This will offer you a structure that helps you to go from just winging it to feeling confident and having clarity on how to do this. So if you decide to learn more about the online course, I just need to put something on here. Something will appear that will allow you to go to a page in a while where there's more information, but you will get 2 live training sessions. There are 2 2-hour training sessions followed by a Q&A, whereby we do a deep dive in the solution focus approach, way deeper than what we've done now, and whereby we will do a deep dive in the behavior and relationship toolkit. You will also get, because you can't remember it all, you will get 12 months access to 21 training videos whereby I not only explain the solution focused approach, you will also see me actually work with a parent and going through each of the 5 steps. I demonstrate how to do this. And also the behavior and relationship toolkit. So for 12 months, you have access to all of that. Plus, you can join a Facebook group, connect to other people, and you get, of course, the most important one, a certificate of completion.